Just thinking about having to say goodbye to a loved one over video chat. Can you even imagine how difficult that would be? I mean, it wasn't even my family member, but I just felt my heart was breaking for them. So the chaplain and myself made everything possible to make these video chats happen. And we got every family member on board. And they were able to say their goodbyes and talk to her and really make sure this was what she wanted. Each family member had maybe a 5-minute conversation with her. Just, again, super heartbreaking. But they were all ready, and it was really amazing that at least they got to see her one last time.
Welcome to a special round of Candid Conversations, and my guest today is coming all the way with information from Scottsdale, and she is a nurse in the ICU. Welcome, Celeste Cesario. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you, Aparna?
I'm actually almost ready to pass out because I am very nervous about nurses, doctors, hospitals, and ICU just makes me tremble. I don't know what you. Yeah, so there is something about that whole environment that scares me, but I'm doing well. I know the cases have been rising, the COVID cases, and how has it been in Scottsdale?
It has been, one word to describe it is insanity. I've been working in the ICU for over 2 years, and normally the ICU is insane, but this is a whole different ball game, so to speak. I'm seeing, I usually see, I would say maybe on average 1 to 2 deaths per week in the ICU, but since COVID has started, I would say it's an average of 3 to 5 maybe per day sometimes, and it's just heartbreaking. And the difference between working, a normal ICU shift and working during COVID is all of the barriers that we have to get through to get to our patients. So we're wearing all of this PPE, literally covering our whole body, goggles covering our eyes, mask covering our face, a face shield over that. Our scrubs are covered, our hands are covered with gloves. There's literally no human part of us that is seen except for our eyes. So one of the biggest barriers for me to get through is, trying to reach my patient through all of this stuff that I'm wearing. So, we discussed prior to the video, Aparna, that I talked about nursing is both an art and a science. Science in that there's a lot of medical interventions that we provide care, but there's also the art portion of it, which is how do I bring humanity into this situation? How do I reach my patient and let them know that they're cared for and let them know that I'm their advocate? So that's
and we are going to talk about that a bit later in the interview, but I have a whole level of respect for the work that you and everyone else is doing in the hospitals, trying to just cope with this crisis. I mean, I wear the mask to the grocery store for 5 minutes and I'm ready to pull it off. I won't because it's not legal, but I cannot imagine being in that, working 18, 19-hour shifts and still staying sane in this environment. How do you stay sane? And how do you keep yourself cool in all that outfit? I know the air conditioning is there, but it has got to feel warm after a while with all the emotions and all the gear. How do you manage that?
With the mask, we wear a surgical mask all day. Everybody does in the hallways, more so to protect all the staff. Studies have shown that the reduction of transmission of the virus is reduced by about 5% if both people are wearing a mask. So thank you for wearing your mask to the grocery store. But it is very claustrophobic, but I would say the N95 respirator is much more so. It's just part of my job. It's part of what I have to do, and it's part of keeping myself and other people safe. And I'm okay with that. I can still breathe. I am okay. It becomes something you get used to.
So let me ask you this. When people are coming to the hospitals, obviously you're all busy doing your own thing. They don't have a support system other than the people who are taking care of them in that moment, which is the nurses and the doctors. What is their reaction? Are they coming in with anxiety? Are they just there trusting you to do the right thing and calm? Do you see all sorts of things?
All sorts. So, normally people coming into the hospital are scared, understandably, especially to ICU. When you hear intensive care, you think, oh my gosh, like this is serious. And it is. Um, People are coming in, unfortunately, without their family members because we're on restriction right now due to level Black restriction due to the pandemic. Because we don't know what people are bringing in with them outside. And we're trying to, again, protect the staff as well as our immunocompromised patients in the ICU. So it's been very hard with our families not being able to be here for our patients. So we as staff have to step up even more to be that advocate. Some of the things that we've been doing have been making multiple phone calls daily just to update our family members, trying to FaceTime if we can, even when the patient's intubated and sedated and can't talk back. It's just important that the family is able to see that they're okay, and because they have no idea, what's going on. And it just provides, from what I've seen, a certain level of relief for the family members to be able to even see their loved one. So,
and that's what I was assuming. I mean, for us, we are on the outside, so we have no idea what's going on. And thank you for sharing that. So let's go back. Celeste was never born as a nurse. She went through nursing through a journey. Let's go back to Celeste as a baby. I know you were born here in the Bay Area. So
yes,
tell us about your early life and share with us some special memories.
So that's going far back to my baby times, but I was born in Milpitas, California. I was mostly raised in South San Francisco. My dad is a minister, not currently active, but he was a minister for many years. And then he was also a construction foreman. He's now a contractor. And my mom I'm the oldest of 5 children. My mom raised all 5 of us. She was a stay-at-home and she was wonderful. She homeschooled my brother Nick and I until 3rd grade, and I ended up actually skipping a grade because I did so well. So thank you, Mom, for that. Let's see. So oldest of 5 kids. I'd love to talk about my family if we have time. My mom and dad are both very dedicated parents, very loving, very supportive. I have 4 siblings, like I said. So my second oldest after me is Nick, and he's married to Nicole, his wife, who is amazing. She's bubbly. Her laughter gets me every time. She's so funny.
And is she also in Scottsdale?
No. So I'm the only one in Phoenix. Everybody else lives in California, in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So,
why so? Why did you decide to abandon us?
So my husband actually got his first tech job out here, and I wanted to pursue nursing. Ironically, now he works for a tech company in the Bay Area. I won't say which one, but we still have ties, back to California. I go back, well, before the pandemic, probably once a month. And my sister Michaela and I are especially close. So we see each other even more often than that.
Okay, so now let's continue with the other siblings. I had to ask you why you moved away. Okay,
yes.
So you talked about your brother and his wife.
Yes, and they have 2 children, Max and Titan. Max, the older one, he just lost his first tooth today. So they're both just adorable, and I love them so much.
Congratulations to Max. He's on his way to becoming a big boy now.
And the tooth fairy visited him, and he got some money and a nice note. So we love that.
Always.
So, yes. So next is my brother Morgan, and he is a construction project manager. He graduated from Cal State East Bay, and he's married to Michelle, who is a airline customer service representative in the Bay Area as well. Gosh, there's so many of us. Let's see who's next. Oh, Michaela. Michaela is about 10 years younger than me, but we are like this. We're best friends. I don't know what I'd do without her. She's been one of my biggest support systems through everything that's been going on with the pandemic. And even before then, she's a singer as well. I should mention my whole family is musical. And we got that from my grandma, Eleanor. But anyway, Michaela is just awesome. I don't know what I'd do without her. And she is getting her communications degree. She just got her associates. So she's applying to schools right now in the Bay Area to get her bachelor's. And I couldn't be more proud of her. And let's see, the last one is Brandon. Brandon graduated from Las Positas College with from Firefighter Academy. He's also got his EMT certification. So we bond in a special way because we can talk about medical stuff. Everybody else in the family doesn't like to talk about that. So
very talented group of siblings here. I do have to ask before I talk about your grandmother, why the closeness when there was a 10-year difference? Normally they say there is no sense of sharing. How do you feel that happened?
Between my sister and I,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. So I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And as much as I love my brothers, there's no closer relationship that you can have, I think, than with a sister.
With a sister,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
And she is going through some things that I went through at her age. And so we're able to bond over that. I'm able to give her, wiser advice and things like that. So yeah.
Well, I just wanted to highlight that connection at that gender level of sisters connection is very different from that of a brother and sister. I have a brother, I have an older brother. Yeah, so it's always going to be different. So who amongst all of you got into trouble, if at all? You seem to be very disciplined, all of you, but did anyone get into trouble with your parents?
To be honest, probably me more so because I was the first one, but not too much trouble. Just growing pains,
Yeah, you don't seem like you would have given too much trouble to anyone.
No, not really. I've always been very independent. My mom told me when I came out of the womb, I was screaming and going, ah! So she always said that she knew I was going to be a very, I don't want to say difficult child, but just a more independent child. But she always tells me how proud she is of me. And she just couldn't be more supportive of everything.
I don't think any parent would say they were not proud, because look at the work you're doing. It's service at the highest level. Mm-hmm. And we are all very proud of what you're doing. So let's talk about your grandmother, Eleanor, and her influence on your life, your passions. Let's hear that.
So unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago, but she had quite an amazing life. She raised 7 kids. She had divorced my grandfather, who I never met because he had died before I was born. So she raised 7 kids pretty much as a single mom in the Bay Area as well. She graduated from San Jose State with an opera degree, and she actually got the chance to sing in a chorus in Carnegie Hall when she was in her 80s. And when she was she was an amazing woman. She was an artist. She has, oh my gosh, I forget the name of the museum, but it's in San Jose. She has some landscape art in a museum in San Jose. She also was a part of a senior singing group called the Sizzlin' Seniors. And they went and sang in the community in Campbell, where she lived, and then at her assisted living community.
That's an interesting name, Sizzling Seniors.
She was a fabulous woman. She wore like a feather boa and all this like costume jewelry, just always dressed to the nines.
I can imagine that. With a name like that, you have to have a vibrant group to go and entertain others. Yes. So she inspired you in more ways than one.
Absolutely.
With a love for life, of course, but music. And that's why we are talking today. We connected because of something special that happened, and that Facebook post went viral. So we will talk about that. But tell us, where did this musical journey start for you? Did it start in your teenage years?
So music has always been a part of my life. Like I said, my grandmother was always singing, and she babysat me and my brother Nick a lot. My dad was a minister, but he also did the worship leading in our church, and he was constantly singing. My mom sang all the time. When I was, I believe, 6, maybe, I was put into piano lessons. So I had been taking piano lessons for 14 years. I had many musical achievements with piano. I even taught for a time, but it just wasn't, piano specifically was never, it always felt like sort of something I had to do versus something I wanted to do. But singing has always been something that has been
Came
like a
naturally.
stress reliever. It comes natural. It just flows. And again, my whole family, 3 of my siblings are music teachers. Many of them still lead worship in the church. And then a couple have their own sort of album, not anything famous, but they've made their own music and have albums on SoundCloud and things like that. So we're
it's
very
in your
musical
DNA,
family.
especially
Absolutely.
music seems to be. So now you finish your schooling here in the Bay Area. Where do you go to college?
Actually, I went to college in Arizona.
Okay.
So I did all my undergrad stuff at Rio Salado in Tempe, and then I graduated from Grand Canyon University with my bachelor's here.
Okay. And then what happens after that? Where does life take you after you graduate?
Oh,
When did you
gosh.
decide when did you feel nursing was your calling? And that's where your passion lies.
So when I lived in the Bay Area, I had a babysitter named LaTanya, and she was a nurse. She was a hospital nurse at, oh gosh, was it Mills Peninsula? Is that still the name of the hospital in Millbrae?
Probably.
I forgot.
I
But
told
anyway,
you I don't know much about hospitals for a reason.
but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But anyway, she had taken me, she had a little boy who was only 2 years old, so he was too young to do this. But at her work, she had to take your child to work day. And because her little boy was too young and probably didn't have any interest at 2 years old, she decided to take me because I said I was interested in going. So I shadowed her work for a day. I watched her round on patients. I believe she was a travel nurse because she wasn't with a certain set of patients all day. She was just rounding on many patients at a time. And then I went with her to a skilled nursing facility where she also did some patient rounding. And I just fell in love and was fascinated with just the medical field and science, and there was so much more I wanted to learn. And ever since then, it instilled this passion in me. There was always this in the back of my mind, like, you should do nursing, you should do nursing. So when I got out here, I started working for one of the big banks. I started as a teller and worked my way all the way up to a financial crimes analyst. And I was working from home, but I got really bored. It was kind of a boring job, just sitting behind a computer all day. So that job helped support me through getting my nursing degree. They helped to pay for it, believe it or not. And nursing school was incredibly hard. I did it. It's a 2-year program. I did it in 16 months. It was accelerated. But I loved it. I loved every second of it. So I started off as a nurse on an orthopedic floor, which, I was kind of like, I don't know about that. Ortho doesn't sound that fascinating. I wanted to start off in maybe telemetry, like a heart floor, something a little bit more fast paced. But I loved the director there. Her name's Kate Watson. And she was just fantastic. And I felt a connection with her. And even though that wasn't necessarily my ideal floor, I learned so much from working on that unit. And that got me into the ICU where I am today, and just taught me how to become organized, how to connect with patients, how to deal with multiple distractions at the same time while still being able to, carry on with your job. And now I'm in the ICU, and
so
I just love it.
let me ask you, as a complete novice who obviously shared at the very beginning is very fearful of hospitals. I have no idea how this whole thing works. What is it that draws someone to an ICU unit to work there? Obviously, it is intense. It can be stressful. And how do you prepare yourself for a role like that?
So I'm someone who is, as you mentioned before, it sounds like I'm disciplined. I am very disciplined. I have a very regimented life for the most part. but I do crave a certain sense of excitement and challenge as well. So working in the ICU gives me that craving for like adventure and challenge that I so desperately desire. ICU is constant. There's constantly something new that you're learning. There's constantly new pathologies and diseases that you get to encounter and learn about. Different types of machines and procedures, different doctors. So it's just a whole new world. And you have 1 to 2 patients normally. We're now surging, so we have 3 to 1, which has been difficult. But 1 to 2 patients normally that you get to really intensely focus on the whole body. You get to focus on every system, and you just, as a person who's a little bit maybe a lot OCD and type A personality, I like to have a lot of control. And being in the ICU definitely gives you that control over the full body. And I know exactly everything that's going on with my patient at all times. So it's a very team-oriented.
Very impressive to hear that. And I think the patients also feel that when you are feeling confident enough to address what they are feeling, they trust you even more.
Yes.
And I think that's what I'm hearing as you're saying, that
Yes.
excitement, that passion, they connect with that. What has been the most challenging thing when you started in this profession, and then working your way into the ICU? What has been something?
I think the most challenging thing is what you learn didactically in school isn't always translated. You learn a lot more on the job through experience. How about that?
And that's any job.
Any job. So, being in nursing school and doing clinicals and things like that is nothing compared to actually working as a nurse. I won't go into the details because there's a lot of what happens in my day, but the most challenging thing, especially coming into the ICU, was dealing with code situations. On my orthopedic floor, I had very stable patients for the most part. We rarely had a code, and code meaning somebody is not able to breathe or their heart stops. So in ICU, it was sort of like, you take advanced cardiac life support and basic life support classes, and you know what to do, but until you're in that situation and the adrenaline's pumping, before you've had a few codes, you're like, you kind of freeze a little bit. So now that I've been through so many, our ICU is incredible, and I would imagine any is. We are just a team. Something happens and you've got 20 people that will run to the scene, and everybody's on it. Everybody fills their role, falls into place, and takes care of the situation and takes care of the patient.
So let's talk about this video that has essentially gone viral. How did this happen? And tell our viewers what was going on prior to this video being put out.
So I'm not on Facebook, so this is all very weird to me. And the fact that you say it went viral is just like, I don't know, it makes me cringe a little inside, but that's...
So just so you know, Celeste, my social media skills aren't that great either, but I am on it for a specific reason that I shall not name right now, but that's how I got to see yours. So trust me, it is beautiful. And it has really been admired by people who viewed it. So tell us about it.
So what happened, and I'll kind of do the short version of the story, is I had a patient who was, I had taken care of her the day prior, and I was coming onto my shift and getting report, and I heard the patient was really upset and wanted to speak to myself and her family. So after I had gotten report, I dressed up, I went into the room, I talked to the patient, and she was just telling me how tired she was. She was older. On top of being COVID positive, she had probably 3 or 4 more underlying very serious conditions. And we all know, based on the science, that when you have, other conditions underlying, that the outcome is not going to be great when you have COVID. So the patient, when I had gone into her room and I said, "What's wrong, honey? Why are you so upset?" She just was saying that she was so tired and she was so done. She had a BiPAP mask that was sealed to her face that was forcing positive pressure air down her airway. Her mouth was dry, but every time we would try to take the mask off to give her a little swab of water, her oxygen would drop down to 60%. We wanted to keep it above 92%. So she could have very well died if we had taken the mask off. So, you know, unfortunately, we couldn't do that very often. So she was very uncomfortable. She was also isolated in a negative pressure room. We had a negative pressure machine that was very loud. What that does is it takes all of the air and it pumps it outside of the hospital so that the air doesn't stay stagnant and the virus doesn't stay in the room. And then family couldn't come and visit. So, you know, and she was just feeling weak and tired and didn't want to continue on with medical intervention. And when you hear something like this as a nurse, it's very disheartening, because all you want to do is try to make the patient feel better, and you just want to heal them and get them better. You don't want the end result to be a death. That's, you know, it's just horrible. But sometimes that is not what you want, but it's what the patient is ready and willing and wants to have happen. So, you know, after multiple other care team members had gone into the room and the patient had said the same thing to them, it was very evident that this was what she wanted. Around probably noon that day, myself, the intensivist, the resident doctor, the chaplain, and her family had set up a conference to speak to them about what was going on with her medically and then what she was communicating to us. The unfortunate thing is that we had her family on speakerphone. It's not the same as having a conference with the family there, being able to look them in the eye, and it's just very different and very heartbreaking, to say the least, because you can hear them crying on the other end of the phone, and it's,
I cannot imagine being in a situation like that. It's just hearing it is heartbreaking. So
yeah. So after, you know, we'd had this conversation, the family wanted to talk to the patient again to really make sure that this is what she wanted. So myself and the chaplain had set up, we have these iPads that we're able to FaceTime family with, and each family member had a different video app. So the technological part of it was trying to figure out, okay, who's on this, who's on this, who's on that. There were probably 9 or 10 family members, but I wanted to do everything possible to make that happen because they wanted to say goodbye to her. And just thinking about having to say goodbye to a loved one over video chat, can you even imagine how difficult that would be? I mean, it wasn't even my family member, but I just felt my heart was breaking for them. So the chaplain and myself made everything possible to make these video chats happen. And we got every family member on board, and they were able to say their goodbyes and talk to her and really make sure this was what she wanted. Each family member had maybe a 5-minute conversation with her. Just, again, super heartbreaking. But they were all ready, and it was really amazing that at least they got to see her one last time. I even offered, we can have 2 family members come into the ICU, but it's almost more heartbreaking because they have to stand outside the door while the patient's dying. So they didn't want to do that. They wanted to say their goodbyes over the video chat, and that was their choice, and that's okay. So after, you know, we'd made the family calls, the chaplain and I prayed over her, which gave her some comfort and some peace. And then it was just me alone in the room, and I had another patient who wasn't doing very well, but I couldn't morally, ethically, anything, allow this patient to die alone. So knowing I had a patient next door who wasn't doing well, I asked colleagues to make sure that they would keep an eye and, you know, watch this patient for me, make sure they were getting everything they needed. And they agreed to that. I had probably 4 or 5 other nurses watching this patient. And I stayed with her. We have medications we can give to bring comfort to the patient called morphine and Ativan that help with breathing, pain, anxiety. So I started to give the medications, and something just came over me, like something moved in my heart. And I say it's God because I was raised to believe in God. And something just told me, you've got to do something here. Like, you've got to bring something to this horrible situation. Death, in my opinion, requires some ceremony. And normally we have family members there who bring that sense of ceremony and memoriam to that very difficult situation. But when family wasn't there, and it was, it was quiet in the room yet loud because of that negative pressure machine, I just had to do something. So I thought, oh, sing to her. Sorry, I get teared up thinking about it. But the only song that I could think of to sing at the time was Amazing Grace. I mentioned in the video, I didn't want anybody to hear me, nor did I think anyone could, because it was so loud in the room. The door was shut. And again, I wasn't even thinking about that. It was just like, I need to comfort this woman right now in this hard time. So I started singing, and she, even though she was gasping for air, as I had taken the mask off, she was humming along with me. It was just a beautiful moment. And I had mentioned in the video as well, and I'll mention it again, another beautiful thing that happened was the resident doctor had come to the door, and she started knocking, and I was kind of like, what does she need? So I go up to the door, and I put my ear up to the door because it's very loud in the room, and I said, are you okay? What, do you need something? Is everything okay? And she said, I'm coming in there with you. And she starts gowning up, and I'm like, you don't have to be in here with me. You have so many other patients to see. You're busy too. And she said, no, I'm coming in there with you. I don't want you and her to be alone. And what you're doing in here is really beautiful. And I was just like, what? So she comes into the room, and she stands, the patient's here, center where I am. I'm here. She's here. She holds the patient's hand. I hold the patient's other hand. And we stay with her. I continue singing, and she passed really quickly, and it was just really peaceful, and she'll stay with me forever. She was a really inspiring woman, and I'll never forget her.
It seems like a very touching moment, a very special moment shared by the three of you.
Yeah.
And now we are getting to be a part of it through your story. So thank you for sharing. I wasn't there, and it has touched me. I don't know if you want to sing in her honor.
Yeah. I'll sing a little bit of Amazing Grace. Sorry. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you. We've all lost people. It's hard. And thank you for what you do. I don't know how you do it every day. I don't think I was ever meant to be in the field. Maybe that's why I'm so afraid of doctors.
I think everybody has the capacity I think everybody has it in them to be a decent human being. And I think that anybody could have done that. So I've been most in touch with my parents via FaceTime. I haven't seen them like in person since Christmas, I think. That's been really hard. Especially my mom. I need my mom right now. And I just love to give her a big hug, but again, not able to do that right now. My sister, Michaela, we've been in contact. We talk to each other like probably multiple times a week, FaceTime or text or whatever it may be. The last time we're huge Disney fans and we love going to Disneyland. The last time I saw her was February. We went on a Disney trip before everything got kind of crazy. But again, it's not the same as not seeing her in person, but we still are in constant communication. My littlest brother, Brandon, who's the firefighter EMT, he actually just got engaged to his fiancée, Megan. I don't know what's going to happen with their wedding with everything going on, but I'm really proud of him. And it's been great just to talk to him about medical stuff because nobody else likes to talk about it, understandably so. And my husband, it kind of grosses him out sometimes, but he definitely he listens. He listens to this stuff, but it's different having somebody who actually understands.
Everyone has a different way of supporting, of being in touch. So tell me about your friends and your support system in the Bay Area or over there. Any specialty?
Yes, I want to give a special shout out to my best friend, Charito. She lives in San Francisco. She has a master's in communication and works as a chief of staff for a big Bay Area company. She and I try to chat at least weekly over FaceTime, and we actually do like a FaceTime happy hour. So she's been just an amazing supporter, and she keeps it light. She's just got this bubbly, vivacious personality and just keeps everything light and keeps me in perspective. Keeps me on my feet. She grounds me, so to speak. And we've been best friends for 16 years. So I love her to death.
That is amazing.
Yeah. My other best friend lives here in Phoenix. Her name is Jen, and she just had her first baby. She is married and works for a medical device company here in Phoenix. And she's just been a wonderful support system too.
So you have your own little support system, and you encourage everyone in and around the community to develop their own support system as we go through this period of uncertainty. It is uncertain for many people, losing jobs, not being well emotionally, mentally. It does take a toll. Yeah. So I thank you personally for what you are doing. I'm sure the community appreciates your contributions, your time, and what you are doing. Go back to the conversation we were having with you, singing to the patient, and the reaction that the world essentially has given to that combination of art and science. When families go through this kind of a painful experience, as you witnessed, what do you think is the one element that that can be added from the outside to make it more supportive for the patient who's dealing with what they're dealing with, but you essentially the workers in the hospital, how can the community, how can the family support you in your journey as you're supporting patients inside?
So it can be difficult at times during the day to keep up communication with family, but as a rule for myself, I try to communicate at least 3 times a day. So do a morning, afternoon, and an evening. And then I also like to do a FaceTime, even if my patient's vented and sedated, and they can't talk to the family member. It just creates that bond between you and the family, and then you get to know the patient a little bit better. And there's just something about that human connection that you still have to maintain. So it's really important to me to maintain that. As far as supporting healthcare workers, we love food. Food touches our soul. I've been really touched recently with a lot of anonymous donations that we've been receiving at the hospital, food-wise. People will just send us lunch. We don't get breaks. It's just too busy. We're in surge mode right now, so we're taking on more patients than we normally would, which is just crazy. but food has been wonderful. So support your healthcare workers, send food if you can.
Yes, and I think that people across the world have been doing that with food and also
Yes.
with masks or gloves, whatever was
Yes.
needed. I myself have been seeing and been involved in some of those. When you finish your shift and you're done for the day, how do you detach?
So my husband is a huge support system for me. When I come home, even on days that he's working, he has dinner ready for me. He's an amazing cook. We've been together for 15 years and married almost 10. And he's just my rock. I told you earlier that I see a therapist in order to stay mentally healthy. He does breathing techniques that I've learned. He'll sit with me and he'll just breathe with me if I'm feeling stressed. He knows all the things that I like to do for myself to stay calm. So he'll say, babe, maybe you should go for a run. Maybe you should do your yoga. Maybe you should meditate. So he just knows what I need. He draws a bath for me. He's just instinctive, and he's such a good partner. I said previously, he gives me the wings to fly, and even in my career, he's always supported everything that I've done and continues to encourage me to just be better every day.
And you met him where?
I met him in the Bay Area, where all good things happen. We met actually at College of San Mateo, and
have you visited the College of San Mateo?
No. No.
Plan to visit it just to reminisce and bring back some fond memories?
Oh, maybe we'll do like a 10-year reunion shot there or something. 10-year anniversary renewal of vows or something.
Looks like you love Arizona. You enjoy being there, and we don't blame you, but it seems like it is a hot day there. I'm seeing the fan going behind you. Yes. So any parting thoughts for people like us who are on the outside?
So I would definitely say, California has been wonderful about wearing masks, social distancing, maintaining hygiene. You guys aren't seeing the kinds of surges we're seeing here. I know it's hard, and I know you want to go out. I do too, but please, stay in as much as you can. Get your groceries, get the things that you need. Try to connect with your loved ones as much as you can. Keep those people, tight-knit people with you, because you need them to stay mentally stable. Wear your masks. I'll say it again. The evidence has shown that the transmission of the virus decreases by about 5%, or down to 5% if both people are wearing a mask. So please continue to wear your masks. The science is real on that. Wash your hands. Try not to touch your face. And social distance 6 feet apart.
Any parting thoughts, Celeste?
This is not forever. Usually a vaccine takes about 18 months to develop. There are lots of trials that it has to go through to make sure that it's safe and that the side effects are not too damaging. But there is going to be hope for this. This is just one period of time in human history that unfortunately we're all dealing with right now, and we can overcome this. Just continue doing the things that you need to do and stay healthy, stay safe.
And we thank you for what you're doing and for your time today. I really appreciate you being here with me and sharing your stories. Thank you so much, Celeste.
Thank you, Aparna. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.